Let's pick this up where we are in at the end of Chof Tes Amud Beis. So if we mentioned this, the Mishnah, this is of course the last perek of Rosh Hashanah, and it starts off by telling us about Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah that fell on Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah falling on Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash. They blew, but not outside. And we spoke about this point, and we've seen this before in Megillah. We've seen this in Sukkah. Talking about casting back their minds over these all these years. This principle about, you may want to put people on, Peter, on mute. Yeah. Everybody's familiar with the Tkir shofar, but not everybody is an expert at blowing the shofar. Everybody's obliged. And there we have this principle, which we've seen before, Shema Yitlena Biyoda, a person will forget how to blow, or the halachas, whether it's a Megillah or a shofar or a lulav. V'yelech eitzel boki lilmod v'yavrenu daladamas b'reshus harabim. A very interesting point. And they will carry it daladamas, and therefore, in other words, the carrying, we said, imagine the possibility, if you work out the probabilities of this happening over all the years. Nevertheless, the Chachomim, feeling the Kedusha and the importance of Shabbos, that if one person it might happen that they will carry a B'Shoige even, Daladamas B'Reshus Harabim. For that reason, it's worthwhile not having this mitzvah of shofar, and worth remembering that the coming year, Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah actually falls on a Shabbos, according to the calendar. And the build-up of the Kedushas Shabbos. And that's why, of course, Shabbos always important, but particularly important on Rosh Hashanah. If Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, then we really should be blowing that shofar. And they blew it. And as we saw before, blowing the shofar is not a malacha. Remember, we said it's a chokhmah. We should really be blowing that shofar. But the Chachomim said not to blow it because of Kedusha Shabbos, which means, therefore, particularly on Rosh Hashanah, which falls on Shabbos, we must be as careful as we can about Kedusha Shabbos, because it's only because of that we're not blowing the shofar. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. We'll come back to that shortly. Simon, good to see you. And then the Mishnah goes on to say, but they blew in the Beis Hamikdash. And the idea there is that in the Beis Hamikdash, you've got the top Beis Hamikdash, the Sanhedrin. You're not going to make an error in front of the Sanhedrin. You've got the Sanhedrin there. So in front of the Sanhedrin, there'll be no problem. Others say the fact that the Sanhedrin is sitting in Yerushalayim, the whole of Yerushalayim is a rather different place, and therefore a person will not forget themselves in Yerushalayim. But I'll say more of this to come. However, Avalobim Dino, not outside Yerushalayim, not outside the Beis Hamikdash, on Shabbos, which is Rosh Hashanah, did they blow the shofar? Now, Mishechora Beis Hamikdash, this is a bit we're picking up. When the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, She'etokim b'chol makom sheyesh bo bezdin. Wherever there is a bezdin, and there's a machlokas about this, what type of bezdin are we talking about? Some say we mean a bezdin of 23, which can paskin capital offences. Others say no, as long as it's a bezdin, a qualified top-class bezdin, that's also good enough. Omar Rabbi Elazar, just revising, Rabbi Elazar said in the Mishnah, 5th line down, Lo hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai ela b'yavne bilvad. Oh yes, after the destruction you could blow the shofar Rosh Hashanah Shabbos only in Yavne. There was the Sanhedrin Hagodol, 71. Then that took the place of Yerushalayim, but no other Bezdin, in front of no other Bezdin could you blow the shofar. Then the Gemara comes back, and we'll have to see what this means. Omru lo, they said to Rab Loza, no, echad yavna, ve'echad kol mokom sheyesh bo bezdin. Not just Yavna, but any place where there's a bezdin. Now, this is very funny, strange. People may remember, Punch and Judy. Oh yes, I did. Oh no, I didn't. Cast your minds back somewhere. The Gemara, the first Tana, the Tana Kama in the Mishnah said, after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, Toikim b'chol mokom sheyesh bo bezdin. Then Rabbi Loza said, no, only Yavna. They come back and say, no, any place. I mean, what has the third view added to the... You don't find Beis Hillel say this, Beis Shammai say this, and then Beis Hillel come back and say, no. I said, you've mentioned their view. You don't need to mention it again. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit like, oh, yes, I did. Oh, no, I didn't. I mean, what is this third view? The Gemara will pick that up. Now, let us look at the first wide line of the Gemara. That's where we're up to. Misher Chorav Beis Hamikdash, Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, etc. Tonu Rabbonon, the rabbis learned. Pam achas it happened. Chal Rosh Hashanah liyos b'Shabbos. It looks like this is the first time this happened after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And it fell on Shabbos. V'koyu kol ha'orim, all the cities miskansin. They all came. Have a look at Rashi, please. Hoyu kol ha'orim, about 10, 12 lines up in Rashi. Seviva is Yavna, all the cities surrounding Yavna came to Yavna, Miskansin, Beis HaKnesses, have a look at the Rashi. L'shom, they came there to Yavna, Lishmaya Tekiah, to hear the Tekiah. They what's going to happen now? In the past, again, Rosh Hashanah falling on Shabbos, the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they went to Yerushalayim. That was the place, the only place, where they blew the shofar. So they all came to Yavna expecting the same thing to happen. Lishma tequila, from who from? Misheluche Bezdin. From the messenger, if you like, whoever's the shaliach of the Bezdin, not a messenger not being sent out, but the one who's been appointed from the Bezdin, Lefi Shahoya Regilim came to Yerushalayim. They used to do this in Yerushalayim. When it was on Shabbos, they blew the shofar in Yerushalayim. Right? So now what is going to happen? They've all come to Yavna. What's happened to Yavna? Yavna is the place where now the Bezdin Hagodol is sitting, taking the place of Yerushalayim, never quite taking the place of Yerushalayim, but nevertheless continuing on there. And go back to the Gemara, second wide line. Omar lohen Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai livnei b'seira. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to Bnei Beseira, who are these children of Beseira? Have a look at Rashi. Gedolei hador hoyu. Great Rabbonim, great sages. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who's the prince, he said, Niska. Very nicely put. It's Niska is in the first person plural, which means let us blow. Nice way to put it. Let's blow the shofar. Omrulo, these chachomim said to him, Nidon, shouldn't we judge and consider the situation? Look at Rashi, very interesting. Nidon, im yesh ligzor af b'mokom bezdin shema yitlena. Maybe we should still have this decree. We have the power to make this decree. Until now, it was only Yerushalayim. Maybe this decree should be even in front of the Beis Din HaGadol in Yavne. Should we not discuss this and come to a decision? These are the great sages saying to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Omar lahen, he said to them, Niska va'achar kach nidon. Let's blow the shofar, Rosh Hashanah, let's not hang around. We will discuss this afterwards, but let's blow the shofar now. Okay. La'achar shetoku, after they blew, Omrulo, so these Rabbonim said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you see what's going to come. Nidon, okay, we said we were going to discuss it, whether we should be doing this, maybe this is just a one-off. Omar lahem, he says, Kava nishma'o keren b'yavna. The shofar has already been sounded in Yavna. The keren, remember, the horn, the sound of the shofar has already been heard in Yavna. We can't change what we've already done. So you can see clearly where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was coming from. Once we've already done it, we can't change this anymore. Have a look at Rashi, please. It won't be right. Pasnish. What will go out? A word will go out. If we change this, we'll say, oh, we made a mistake the first year. So therefore, our hands are tied. And clearly, this is what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai wanted to do, with that power to be able to do it, as he was the Nossi. So therefore, he's pushing through this legislation because he's now utilizing the point that once they're blown, you can't change that. Otherwise, people will say, whoa, the Beis Din, not that it's impossible, but the Beis Din made a mistake. And it would be our laws, as we say, a bad word going out about the Beis Din. And therefore, this rule was now enforced that they would blow the shofar in Yavne. Okay. So far, this sounds like the first year. What happens next? Well, the Tanna Kama said that this ruling wasn't just in Yavne. B'chol makom sheyesh bo Beis Din, the fourth line of the Mishnah says. This was extended out not just to the Beis Din HaGadol, Yavne, and later on in this perek, the Gemara will discuss how they moved from place to place, not quite pillar to post, but as they were being, remember the Romans, etc., chased, they went from one place to another in Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara deals with that, but not now. But he's making a decree according to the Tanna Kama, anywhere where there is a Beis Din, okay? And as I mentioned before, what type of Beis Din? Does this mean a large Beis Din, not the Beis Din HaGadol, because that only sits in one place? Does it mean a Beis Din of 23? And of course, nowadays we don't have a Beis Din of 23. We don't have a paskin in capital offences. Or does it mean any place where there is a Beis Din, which means the Beis Din of town? You've got Talmud Chachomim, Rabbonim, Gedolim. That would also be possible to blow. Very interesting machlikas, and you can see what that means, because if we paskin like this Tanna Kama, then we will be blowing, depending on which way you're learning. According to the view, it's a Beis Din, which is the most powerful Beis Din, if you like, or Rabbonim, Gedolim. You could blow the shofar on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, even today. Let's continue on the Gemara, and then we'll come back to that point. Do you see what I mean? If you say it's the Tanna Kama saying any Beis Din which has obviously a stature, then you could blow Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah in front of such a Beis Din, or so we think. Continue the Gemara. Omar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, remember, Lo hiskin Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai elo b'Yavne. Right? Bilvad. Omruloi, they come back and say to him, Echod Yavne, the Echod Kol Mokum Sheyesh Bo Bezdin. And as we said before, it looks like the Tanna Kama is just coming back to reiterate their point, which seems unnecessary. We have two views in the Mishnah. You don't need the first view coming back at the second view saying, oh, no, you're wrong. I mean, that's the way the Mishnayos are. We have the two views. Please look at the Gemara, 2 lines up from the end. Omruloi, the Omrulo, inverted commas, Hainu Tanakama. That is the view of the Tanakama. Again, the Tanakama said anywhere where there is a Bezdin, right? It's true, we need to discuss what size Bezdin, but whatever that is, where that Bezdin is. Rabbi Lozo said, no, only Yavne or the Bezdin HaGodol, 71. They come back and say, no, wherever there's a Bezdin. So it says the Gemara, Omrulo, inverted commas, they said back to him, Hainu Tanakama. This is the same view of the Tanakama. Why repeat it in the Mishnah? Ikabenayu. There's a difference between them. There's got to be a difference between them, otherwise they wouldn't be mentioned in the Mishnah. Beidina de ikroi. What's an ikroi? Like a mikre. Just happens. What does it mean that happens? Please look at Rashi. Bezdin de ikroi. If it's not a permanent Bezdin. Now again, we're not talking about the big 71 person Bezdin. That's not discussed here. We're talking about a large Bezdin. The question is it permanent or not? Have a look, please, at Rashi. Bezdin de ikroi, le Tanakama, according to the Tanakama, takino. Even if the Bezdin sat, they got together, the Rabbonim, 3 people sitting together, maybe not permanent, maybe only for a short period, that's good enough. Because it says, Kol Mokum Sheyesh Bo Bezdin. Wherever there's Bezdin, even if they're not permanent. Back to Rashi. The Tana who says, Omru Lo, they said back to him, it's not the same people of the Tanakama. The Sova, those people hold, Echod Yavne v'Echod Kol Mokum Sheyesh Bo Bezdin Kavua. It's true. It doesn't have to be 71, but it's got to be some type of permanence to it. Dumya de Yavne, which was like Yavne, it was there for quite a period. It's got to be permanent. If it's permanent, when I say permanent, it's not just meeting for the odd week or so, a bit of permanence to them, then that will be good enough. So that's the subtle difference between the Tanakama and the third view that said it's got to be permanent. Okay.
So would the Tanakama say that even a Bezdin of 3, for instance?
Yes.
I mean,
well, it depends.
No.
There's a machlokas. Now, I tried hard, Peter, to get this pirush that I've got on the back of the Gemara here, but I'm afraid it's not Safari. I couldn't find it in the Hebrew books, so you'll have to listen to me. Unless people actually have a full Gemara, I can't imagine people use Gemara today. It's all on computer, isn't it? People got a Gemara? Simon's got his Gemara, no doubt. But, if you have a Gemara, then at the back, there is the view of the Rif, Rav Al-Fassi, died just a few years before Rashi. And you've got the Rif. Now, this is quite, well, you'll see the relevance here. The Rif normally is the first actually codifying, taking from the Gemara what actually is halacha. So you mention views and then come to a conclusion, right? Malcolm, good to see you. So the Rif at the back, Rabbeinu Al-Fasi mentions the Mishnah, mentions about the Mikdash, Hoyotokin, and then he mentions the part about the Bezdin that you can blow with the Bezdin, looking very much from the Rif. This is not passing like Rabbi Loza. If you're passing like Rabbi Loza, it's only if you've got a Bezdin of 71. Okay? He is not paskening like Rabbi Loza. He's paskening wherever there is a Bezdin. Fine. He may be even paskening, it sounds like, where the Bezdin is permanent. Fine. Question is, what size Bezdin are we talking about? Now, I've got a Pirush here. If you've got the Gemara, you might have it. Otherwise, I will read it. The Ramban, he's got a Pirush called the Milchemes Hashem, battling on. And it's the Ramban on this Gemara. And he says the following. The view of Rabbeinu Al-Fasi, right, that died in the early... Yep. Peter, if you could put it on.
That's my fault because I have.
That's fine, it's fine. We're all on mute unless you have something to say. Mentions the Ramban that the view of Rabbeinu HaGodol, Rav Al-Fasi, I'm just skipping through this. Yes, his view is that we don't paskin like Rabbi Loza. Right? Not only we don't paskin like Rabbi Loza, we paskin you don't need a larger Bezdin, but you can have the top Bezdin of the time. That will be good enough. Says the Ramban, Va'al zeh Somach Rabbeinu HaGodol, against many of the Rishonim, most of the Rishonim don't paskin like this, paskin like Rabbi Loza. He doesn't. He's paskening not like Rabbi Loza, and not only not like Rabbi Loza, she'osa maisa b'dovar, in the Bezdin of the Rif, Komoshe Yodua Mimenu, as is well known, documented, Umotsu B'Tshuvas Talmidov, and his Talmidim of the Rif wrote this down, documented. Shoyu Tokin Bebezdinoi B'Rosh Hashanah Shechal Liyos B'Shabbos. Most Rishonim don't, we Lamaisa don't paskin like that, but the Rif did. So in front of his Bezdin, they blew on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah. We don't paskin like that, but you can see where we're coming from. And his view was it's a Bezdin, which is permanent. He was the Rosh Bezdin, and in that Bezdin, they blew the shofar. Nowadays, we don't paskin like that. We do not blow at all. So, the point is this. Let me ask you the following question. The Chachomim said we don't blow on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, falling on a Shabbos. If someone did blow the shofar, is there a mitzvah? I mean, the Torah said you're meant to be blowing. The Chachomim have said, don't blow. What have they done? Have they said, of course there's a mitzvah in our Torah, but we are saying, and they have the power to do that, we are Shevet Be'alta said, don't do the mitzvah. We are scared, we're worried, they've come to that conclusion, and we are saying we are not going to blow the shofar. That's what we do today. But there really is a mitzvah, but we are overlooking it. Or do you say something, and this you may find quite intriguing. The Chachomim have the power to be mavatal a mitzvah. Would you say that? Remember, there's a posuk in Shoftim. Lo sosir, don't remove from whatever the rabbis say. They've got that power to say, because of this ruling, and we are scared, there is no mitzvah anymore of Rosh Hashanah, Shabbos. There's no mitzvah. It's not as if there is a mitzvah and we're saying, don't blow the shofar. We are saying there is no mitzvah, which means, actually no point, but anyway, the rabbis have said not to blow, but it's more than that. They've removed the mitzvah. Very powerful. Now, for this, I'd like Peter, if you don't mind, to bring up the Mishnah in Sukkah. Cast your mind back, what was it, 22 years or so? No, it's all right. Well, it's no test now. When we were doing Sukkah. Thank you, Peter. No, the one I'd like would be the other Gemara I sent you, which was later on in, not Safaria. Let's go to a real Gemara. Oh, that's the one. That's the one. If you can just allow it over the whole screen for us. Gets a bit larger. Can it feel? Oh, there you go. Oh, brilliant. That's a type of Gemara we know. Chof Ches. This is in Sukkah. Yeah, drop down, please. I'd like to see the Mishnah there. There's the Mishnah. Very interesting Mishnah. Okay, yeah, let's have a look at this Mishnah. So, there we go. Mi shahoya. Yeah, have we got to drop it down a bit more for us so we can see it? Yeah, that's it. Fine. The Mishnah. Chof Ches in Sukkah. Mi shahoya roshai v'rubai b'sukkah. V'shulchanai b'serchavais. His table is in the house, but he is sitting himself, his head in the sukkah, quite a small sukkah, but he's got his table in the house. Beis Shammai poislin. Beis Shammai say it's possible. Can't do that. Why? Obviously scared the person will lean over and start eating inside, especially there may be people eating inside. He'll come and eat inside. It's possible. Beis Hillel machshirin. He'll say that's kosher. It's obviously he's got to be careful that when he eats, he's eating in the sukkah. He may be taking things off that table, but the fact that he hasn't got a table with his food in the sukkah, that's fine. According to Beis Hillel, machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Omru lohem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai, Lo kachoya maisa, didn't it once happen? Sheholchu ziknei Beis Shammai, the elders of Beis Shammai went, v'ziknei Beis Hillel, and the elders of Beis Hillel, levaker es Rabbi Yochanan ben Hachoranis, great sage, Rabbi Yochanan ben Hachoranis, and they found him on Sukkot. He was sitting in Roshoi Baruba, his head, and the majority of his body, if you like, was sitting in the sukkah. Next line, and he had his table in the house. So 1 minute. According to Beis Shammai, that's wrong. It's possible. V'lo omru loy dovo. They didn't say anything to it. Why didn't Beis Shammai say, excuse me, Rabbi? And of course, there are ways to query whatever the great sage is doing. You don't just say it's a load of rubbish what you're doing. You'd have to put it in a delicate way, and there's certain halachas. You'd have to say something like, isn't the halacha that? But you'd have to say something. If you thought, and that's very, very important actually, if you think even the rabbi is doing something you think it may be incorrect, of course there are ways to do it. You do it in private or whatever. But you should say something and say, actually, I wouldn't say surprised, but isn't the halacha different? They didn't say anything at all. So what do you see from there? It looks like Beis Shammai agreed to Beis Hillel. They changed their tune, changed their mind. Omurahem Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai said back to Beis Hillel, Mishom Raya. Do you think there's a proof from there? Avheim Omrula. Of course they said something to it. They didn't say it in front of you, but privately they said, and look what they said. This is the point I want to raise. Im Kain Hoyisonoyek. If actually this is what you're doing, Lo Kiyamto Mitzvah Sukkah Miyomecha. If you've done this over the years, it doesn't seem to be a mitzvah at all. According to that view of Beis Shammai, and it goes back over the years, if you have a sukkah without the table and you're eating from the table which is in the house, according to Beis Shammai, they did say something, right? Lo kiyamto mitzvosecha. Now, what does that mean? So all those years, imagine, all those years, the great sage, we've got his name, Rabbi Yochanan ben Achoranis. Imagine he was sitting in this sukkah with a table in the house. What would you say? What we all say. Even according to Beis Shammai, who say that the table should be in the house, are you telling me this? Actually, the wording in the Mishnah is interesting. Beis Shammai poislin. Surely it's not possible. There is, and we learned the time in Sukkah, there are a minimum size of a Sukkah. The fact that the table should be in the Sukkah, of course, it's nice. It will avoid someone putting their head over the board, if you like, or eating inside the house. But you can't tell me the Sukkah's possible. And if you've done this over all those years, surely you should say it was wrong. Yeah, maybe a slap wrist.
They can't say that sukkah is possible because this is a circumstance where the table's outside. It's not that sukkah is possible, presumably. It's that they're not being kind of mitzvah relationship or sukkah.
Right. Absolutely. Simon, I think we'd all be with you. Now, please, and this is what's startling. Everybody understands Simon's point. In other words, a sukkah is a good sukkah. Nothing wrong with a sukkah. Of course, the rabbi said, don't eat in a sukkah with a table outside, but hopefully, if he was going to follow Beis Shammai, from now on, he wouldn't do that. But to say, Lo kiyamto mitzvah sukkah miyomecha, isn't that going a little bit far, saying you've actually never actually fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah? Now, please turn, Peter, to the second attachment, or the Tosfos in Daf Gimel. And this is startling. The Tosfos in Daf Gimel, where that's the Mishnah that we saw, is quoted in Daf Gimel. And the Tosfos says, second Tosfos down, the Seder Rav Amram, great Rav Amram Gaon, Posak. I'm doing the second Tosfos, by the way. And we'll only look at a portion of this. Have you got the second Tosfos? Yep. The Seder Rav Amram. Seder is more like a siddur. He had actually a siddur called a Seder. Siddur, that's what it's all about, the word siddur. It's arranged. And one of the very early siddurim. Posak, B'shisha Makomes, Halacha Beis Shammai. In 6 places, we paskin like Beis Shammai, he says. Normally, of course, we do know we paskin like Beis Hillel against Beis Shammai. There are some exceptions. There are always exceptions. And there's an exception here. Nachoda, hi, the sukkah, tzricha, shetei machazekes, roshei berubai, b'shulchanai. The machloikas we saw in Daf Chav Ches, in sukkah, Beis Shammai say, you're not yotza, or, as we saw in the Mishnah, posel. Beis Hillel say, it's okay. On that, we paskin like Beis Shammai. Okay. Now drop down, lots of discussions. Now some of the others as well. I'm only going the last couple of lines of that Tosfos. Now, go up where it says Le Beis Shammai. There's your Yotze Yedei Choy. Have you got the Tosfos? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 narrow lines up in Tosfos. Yedei. There you are. Thank you. If someone sits by the door of their sukkah, there was a gezerah, Shema Yimoshech Achashulchone. Maybe he'll be drawn by that table, end up sitting in the house, forgetting himself. And what was the wording they said? Lo kiyamto mitzvah sukkah miyomecha. You have, if this is what you've done since you're a little boy, then you've never fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. Look at this wording. Ta'afilu mid oraisa, even min haTorah, lo kiyem, he has not fulfilled the mitzvah. The Gemara, the Tosfos are dealing with another case, something similar, where you see this point, and that is quite stunning, actually. We can now go back to faces, Peter. So we see from there a most amazing Tosfos. Tosfos says that the Chachomim have the power. We would not have expected this. That, not saying always, but they have the power to say there is no mitzvah anymore. Although, min haTorah, you'd expect the sukkahs, a wonderful sukkah. It's got the required size, height. But because the table is not in, we actually be paskin like Beis Shammai. We don't paskin like this Tosfos though. But Tosfos' view is, there's a machlikas, Tosfos' view is haven't fulfilled the mitzvah at all, even min haTorah. So we see there is a precedent here. There are examples where the Chachomim can remove a mitzvah. And that all comes, as I say, from that posuk in Shoftim, where it says, Lo sosu, please follow the rabbis, it says, and don't move away from them. Afilu al yomin, smile, follow their view. They have the power to annul a mitzvah. Now the question is, what is the situation with this coming Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos, where we've learned the shofar's not blown, we paskin, not like that Rif, who says that it applies to any Bezdin, in front of the Bezdin you can blow nowhere else. We don't paskin like that. We paskin it's got to be a much larger Bezdin, at least the Bezdin paskin in capital offences, and we don't have that anymore. Although I'm sure there's some people said that we should do, but we won't go down there. Paskin in capital offences, so we don't blow today. But therefore, if we're not blowing, what does that mean? Is there no mitzvah at all? Now, there's a machlikas about this. Some people say this is not one of those examples where they've actually taken the mitzvah away. Not that it makes any difference, because nobody should be playing the shofar anyway. But just, I say, as a principle, if the shofar was blown, is there a mitzvah? Others say, yes, there certainly is a mitzvah. And others say, no, there isn't. But I just mentioned that point because you do see the power of the Chachomim, that they could and might, under certain circumstances, actually annul the mitzvah. Okay, with that, let's move on to the last line of the Gemara on Daf Chof Tesam base. Okay, Omar Rav Huna. Actually, before that, Omru lo echod yavne ve'echod kol mokum sheyesh bebezdin. So a halacha is wherever there is a bezdin. It sounds like certainly if we paskin, it should be capital offences, or if you like, a bezdin which is, let's say, of authority. Next line on the next Omud, please. Daf Lamed Omud Aleph. Onwards and upwards. Good for you, Peter. Choftes. Useful for people for revision, but we won't need it for hopefully.
I mean, it's obvious it should be a Bezdin of some authority, coming back to whether it could be any Bezdin, because Yavne was Bezdin of authority. It replaced the Yerushalayim. So it'd be very for to have
that's the view of Rab Lozo. Rab Lozo says it's got to be Yavne.
Or like Yavne, or
no.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying the person.
No.
It's not. It doesn't.
The Bezdin can't be like Yavne because that was a 71.
Yeah. Okay. But it's
so when the Tanna Kama said, or even the third view said, he can't be referring to a Bezdin of 71.
No, but I'm saying in reverse. You can't be referring to Bezdin of 3 because it's.
It could be a very strong, well-known name.
We tried to make it similar to what happened in Yerushalayim. After Yerushalayim, it was exiled to Yavne, and it's got to be of that.
That's the view of Rab Lozo.
Yeah.
The view of the Tanna Kama is no, it's extended because there's no Beis HaMikdash. It's extended outwards, and any Bezdin has the same power. So they've relaxed that rule.
Can you have multiple?
You're right. The view of Rab Lozo. I'm sorry. Somebody saying.
Can you have multiple Bezdins of 71?
No.
Only one.
Only one. That's called Bezdin Hagodol, and we'll see in due course, all being well, how that was moving around from Yerushalayim, then Yavne, and then it moved on to various other places. And I say and this parak will deal with where those places were, but that's the 71. That's called the Bezdin Hagodol. Then you have a lower Bezdin, 23, where they're paskening capital offensive, but then you drop down to even 3. And if you have a Bezdin of 3, that's paskening a lot of shilas, certainly financial matters. If you are interested, have a look at the very first mission of Sanhedrin, which talks about the size of the Bezdin. Yeah.
Just can you also sit in multiple Bezdins? So you can sit in the.
Oh, you mean the Bezdin? You're saying the individual? Could he sit somewhere else? Presumably he could. I don't know. I think so. I think so. It's a good question.
So my question might be the same as Simon's, but do the 23 at Yavne, are they members?
No. Yavne was 71.
So the 23, are they members of the 71 or a different?
They could be. Yeah, they could be making up a smaller Bezdin, but not, say in a minor role. Yeah, and they'd be paskening capital offences. Actually, as you're there, Peter, why not? Keep you busy. Let's go to Safaria, please.
It sounds like circuit judges, they go around.
Yes, let's have a look at very quickly. Go now to Safaria. Let's go to Mishnah. No. Let's go to. Yeah, I want to go to Mishnah. And let's go to Sanhedrin. Drop down. A bit more. A lot more, actually. Baba Kama, Sanhedrin on the right. And let's have a look at the very first Mishnah of Perek 1. There we are. A bit larger if you can. Doesn't have to be. Dine Mominus Bishloisha. There we are. Financial matters, monetary. Gezelis Vachal Volas, robbery. 3. Nezek Chati, Nezek Tashlumi Kefil, Abova Chamisha. All these things, a Bezdin of 3. Onis mafata moti shemra. All these things, 3. Anything which once you start moving to capital offences, you're moving to 23. Scroll down. Bit more. Let's have a look at the next part of this Mishnah. Makkos. Oh, there you are. Where there's going to be the lashes. Mishnah 23. Iba Chodesh, intercalating the month. Iba Shana 3. Start with 3. And that's about it. I think if you scroll down, you're now into 20. Hold on. Yeah. And I think now if you scroll down one more, which is the next Mishnah, Dinei Nefashos be'esrim shloisha. Wherever there's a capital offense, 23. Esrim shloisha, kol ha'kedim l'hol gezocha. There you are. Whole Mishnah there for you. Mishnah Daled. Scroll a bit more. Let's see. Here we are. There we are. Ein donin loes hashevet. If the whole tribe is being judged, or a novi sheker, false prophet, velois kain gadol. Ella alpi, there's the big one, as we say, shivim biechad. Or emotzim lemechemes rishus, going out into war. Ella alpi bezdin, the bezdin has to decide that as well. So there are that whole Mishnah there, Mishnah 5, tells you when rarely, but you do, that's the ultimate. LRPs then should be echad. 71. And ultimately, the 71 would have to, let's go back again, back to faces, sorry. So the 71 was always there. If there was something which, say a question going up further and further, the ultimate view would be the 71 would sit and decide on something. If there was a major issue which nobody could decide, then it would go to the Beis Nagodl. So that would be, but otherwise the local Botei Dinim should be able to do the job in many instances. It's only when there was a very big issue it would be pushed upwards. So there you are. Let's just make a start. 2 minutes left. To the last line of the Gemara here. We'll have to come back to this, revisit it. Okay. Omar Rav Huna ve'im bezdin. Now, there's a statement that Rav Huna made, and it's often like that. You've got a statement of Rav Huna, and there's a difference between the first part of the Gemara, which we won't even look at completely, and the second half, where the Gemara said, no, Rav Huna wasn't talking about this case, he was talking about something else. So you've got to quote, oh, yes, I know that Rav Huna said, the im Bezdin, together with Bezdin. What was he talking about when he made that comment? So the Gemara says he was talking actually about this Mishnah. And you know what he meant? Have a look at the top 2 words of Rashi in the top line. Ve'im Bezdin, hu de takinon. With Bezdin, you blow. Says the Gemara, what do you mean with Bezdin, you? What do you mean with? What? Now, there are 2 interpretations of that. With Bezdin can mean when they're sitting, or with Bezdin can mean with them right in front of their nose. So if the problem was you might go for a question, if you're sitting right in front of them and you're on the side blowing the shofar somewhere in a room somewhere close by, then if you've got a question, you just go straight to the Bezdin. Or was it when they're blowing or sorry, when they're sitting, and interesting, they were sitting on Rosh Hashanah as well, in case of any questions. No doubt they weren't discussing too many financial issues, but they were there, the rabbis were on call. So what does Im Bezdin mean? My ve'im Bezdin, says the Gemara, top line, bifnei Bezdin. It means right in front of them. So you might have thought it's with Bezdin at the same time they're sitting, imagine, in the morning. Therefore, if you're in that city, you're close by. You don't have to be right in front of them. That will be enough, if you like. You're not going to make mistakes. That you certainly remember it was Shabbos rather than rushing out into the street. There's this pachad in the emo, if you like, the fact that the Bezdin is in town and they're sitting at the moment. Means a person won't forget themselves? Or is it no, only if you're right in front of them? Because then if there was a question that arose, you'd have the Bezdin to ask. So the Gemara says, top line, do you know what it means in Bezdin? Bifnei Bezdin. It means only if you're right in front of them. La'afuke, this comes to exclude sheloi bifnei Bezdin. If you're not in front of the Bezdin, even though it is the time that they're sitting and they are in that town, you've got the Bezdin, they are sitting, I might have thought during that time, then everywhere you could blow the shofar. No, what we're saying here, no. In Bezdin means in front of Bezdin. Bifnei Bezdin. La'afuke shelo bifnei Bezdin deloi. And then the Gemara will ask a question which we can't really look at because we'll get too involved going backwards and forwards. So the Gemara then, as I say, will ask questions about that. But that is the conclusion. The conclusion is only bifnei Bezdin. So in the case of the Rif, as we explained before, who blew the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, which fell on Shabbos, according to this halacha, according to Rav Huna, and the way it's explained, it's only if you are right in front of the Rif and his Bezdin, then you can have Yankel around the side blowing the shofar as well after they've blown. That's fine. You're in front of Bezdin, right? So again, that was very, I wouldn't say it was the time of the Rif. So it's going back so that was in the end of the 1000. He died 1103. That goes back a long way. The time of the Rif where they actually blew the shofar. But I say we don't pascha like that, and therefore we don't blow anywhere. So with that, gentlemen, we will close for tonight. All being well.
I think we should have a l'chaim.